Welcome back to the video lecture series for Introduction to the Art of Programming using Scala. In this video we continue talking about networking, and we're going to hit on two kind of brief topics that are just kind of extraneous issues dealing with networking before we go and look at the larger concept of RMI. The first is serialization of objects, and the second is URLs. So when we've talked previously, when we're talking about the streams in the last chapter, we mentioned the fact that there is an object input stream and an object output stream. And these allow us to do serialization of objects. So for example, if we wanted to save things off in a file, you could write your own code to serialize things, but the default serialization worked fairly well, and it made it very easy to throw things into an input stream. As you've just learned in this chapter, the input stream doesn't have to attach to a file. It can also send things across the network. And in fact, this is probably a better usage of serialization than saving things in files. Remember, the problem with saving things in a file is if the compiled form of the program changes, the stuff that was saved in the file becomes invalid. And that binary format can be very hard to deal with. When you use it over networking, though, you're not saving it for an extended period of time. You're just sending it to use it right now in the moment. Now, we didn't demonstrate this because the chat program that we wrote was supposed to work with Telnet, so it's just plain text. But if you wanted to be able to write to things other than just sending your text, you could very well wrap an object output stream around, and in this case we probably would want a buffered output stream, around the socket's output stream. Okay, so this would then allow us, now you should not do both of these, you shouldn't be wrapping your stream in multiple different ways. You kind of have to pick which one you want. But if I were doing binary forms, and if I were sending lots of objects across the network, and your book shows some examples of doing this, and we'll potentially see some later on in the videos, you would use this object output stream, and then you could do, in addition to all the things you do with the data output stream, you could write doubles and ints and whatnot in their pure binary format instead of just as strings. You could also serialize any of these serializable objects. They would go over to the client, and then the client would look at them and be able to parse them out. Once again, we didn't do this because we were writing stuff that was supposed to interact with Telnet, and Telnet wants just straight text, which is why we used it. But there is nothing that prevents you from making your input stream, wrapping it inside of an object input stream, and the output stream being wrapped inside of an object output stream, and then you have the ability to communicate in larger chunks. So, another thing that is useful inside of the libraries, a lot of your networking communication these days is actually pulling from the internet. And so, let's say I want to download a web page, or I have a data file that is stored out on a web server someplace. Well, you could write your own code to communicate through that, and it's definitely possible to open a socket that communicates with the web server on a machine and then make requests for information. But it's a little bit of a pain, and it's something that's done so often that it's been added to the libraries. And so the URL class is actually a class that represents URLs, the Uniform Resource Locator, which is exactly what you type up here into the top of your web browser. Most of the time you start them with HTTP, though they don't have to. You might have also seen things for FTP and whatnot. And you can create a URL in a number of different ways, the simplest of which is just to give it a long string for the entire spec, the whole HTTP:// whatever that you would type up here in your browser. Once you do that, you have the ability to read from that file. So you can open the stream to it, and that gives you back an input stream, and so then you could read from it in whatever way any of the ways that we've talked about dealing with input streams. There is also a get content, which will give you back an object for something that was stored out there. So this is an easy way for you to pull things off of HTTP servers. And just to demonstrate this, we could go inside of one of our programs and have it so that it opens up. So we could just do it inside of our main server here, just add some additional code that we don't really care about much at the top. So I'm actually going to pull down, let's do the main site for the textbook. Okay, www.programmingusingscala.net, and we can flip over to the web browser and just open a tab to make sure we can see what that looks like. And if you want to make sure that we don't have any typing errors, we can of course copy that URL. So this is the page that serves us, and instead of actually typing this in manually, I could always just paste. Apparently I didn't have any typos to start with, so that we have the correct thing. And then I could get the input stream for this and read the entire contents of it if I choose to. I could also equals URL dot get content. Try printing that out. If we run this, okay, so the contents gives us an input stream for this. Let's say if we wanted to actually read it using the input stream, val is equals URL dot open stream. There we go. And then maybe read the first 100 bytes. is.read buff print line new string of buff. Okay, and so there you go. Wasn't exactly a very interesting beginning of the file, but that's the early contents of the file that was served back to us. And so you can use this to read things. Because it gives you an input stream, turns out that, for example, if this were an image that were out there, so let's try that real fast. There we go. There's a different URL for the large image that we have. You can so java.x.imagio.imagio get notice, oh hey, actually there's a read from a URL and there's a read from input stream. So we could do a read from is, and that will read, or we could skip the even opening the input stream and just say read from the URL, and then we would have an image. If you happen to write games and you don't want to have to send out all of your image files, or you want to be able to change them later, an interesting approach would be to post all of the images on a web location. Of course, now people wouldn't be able to use your program unless they're connected to the internet, but still, it's an easy way to make it so that you can pull things off of public stores and use them inside of your programs. So that's it for this video. Next video, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about RMI, remote method invocation, which is an alternate way for us to approach doing our networking in programs that use the Java platform, so including those